Yeah, once again, it is good to see everybody here and glad everybody could make it. Lately we've been studying the armor of God. Still kind of doing, I guess, the introduction to it. Haven't really got into the meanings of everything yet. But the scripture that we're still focusing on, and today's sermon is a continuation of last Sunday. We focused on Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 13. Actually, 13. And talking about being strong in the Lord. And I started into 1 Samuel, showing how in 1 Samuel we have an example of using the armor of God. Last week I mainly talked about Goliath. We're looking at the David and Goliath story in chapter 17. And I mainly focused on Goliath and how he's 9 foot tall and he had all sorts of armor and weapons on him and the size of the weapons and everything. And then we're picking up today with where David is introduced on the battlefield to King Saul. And that's where we're picking up in verse 32 of chapter 17 of 1 Samuel. Now, before this, David had been sent to the battlefield by his father Jesse to take food for his brothers and to see how things were going and see how his brothers were doing. And then to come back and give a report to Jesse on how everything's going on the battlefront. And back in that time, they didn't have these big galleys and dedicated cooks to prepare the meals for the soldiers. Each family provided food for their family member. And that's how the army was supported with food. And then they would bring the news back to the community of how everything was going. And so David is taken before Saul, and Saul's talking to him about the battle and what's going on and the reward that he has offered. One of his daughters hand in marriage, riches untold, and then also the family would be able to live tax-free if one person would defeat Goliath. And so we pick up in verse 32, and David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth. He, a man of war from his youth." And David said unto Saul, Thy servant was keeping his father's sheep. And when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after him and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servants smote both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. Okay. Last week I said David was probably middle school age, and it is based on this verse where Saul says he's just a youth. For us in today's church, Youth is basically anything from high school senior down to about 5th or 6th grade. So he's somewhere, it's kind of a big area, but he was in that age range somewheres. Not exactly sure. The Bible doesn't say how old he actually was. But here he was, and he's saying, I'll go and kill this giant. And Saul's saying, how can you're just nothing compared to this guy. You've not been trained in battle. You're not a member of the army. You haven't been professionally trained or anything. And David says, look, I watch over my family's sheep. It's my responsibility to make sure they all come back. And there's wild animals out there. A lion or a bear. I've killed them with my bare hands. Because as a shepherd, he didn't have spears. He had a sling as we'll see later. But he didn't have a spear or a gun. Of course, they didn't have guns at that time either. You know, all they had were like knives and slings. But yet David, a youth, was able to kill a bear or a lion with his bare and survived to tell it. And David was looking at Goliath as he compared Goliath to a bear or the lion, because to him is just another wild animal that he had to kill to protect the sheep. And then picking up in verse 37, and David said, Jehovah that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And that's what I was just saying. He trusted God to protect him. And Saul said unto David, Go, and Jehovah shall be with thee. And Saul clad David with his apparel, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head, and he clad him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his apparel, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had, even in his wallet. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near the Philistine. We'll end there. And right here is what I'm wanting to focus on. After David tells Saul of how he's killed wild animals and lived to tell, and how he'll treat Goliath the same way, Saul's convinced and said, okay, go ahead. But here, I want you to put my armor on. Now, Saul was a man, you know, he was a grown man, so he's bigger than David. And so you can imagine putting on a big helmet that was too big for him, the armor of a breastplate, which was too big, and David was restricted in his movement, plus he was not used to wearing armor, and so he did not know how good it was going to work. And being restricted in his movements like he was afraid that he couldn't get away. He'd wind up being killed before he could kill Goliath. And so he says, you know what? I haven't used this. I'm not used to it. So he took it all off, and he said, I'll just go out like I would as a shepherd, and I will defeat Goliath, and God will protect me. I'm going to go to him in God's name. And the rest of it, the rest of the story goes as you know, David goes out there. He picks up 5 stones from the brook, from a stream running through the battle area. And the reason that he got 5 was not because he's afraid he was going to miss Goliath, but they say, historians say that Goliath had 4 other brothers. And he knew that once he killed Goliath, he would have to go and kill those other brothers as well. Or else they would come and kill him in a revenge murder situation. So he picked up the 5 stones, put them in a pouch that he had hanging from his belt, and went out and met Goliath. And the rest of the story is Goliath looks at him and says, "Who are you? You're just a little pipsqueak to me. You know, get away. You're not worth my time. How can you, this little thing compared to me, kill me?" And David tells him that the Lord Jehovah, the God, Jehovah will protect him and will deliver Goliath into his hand, and he will kill him. And as Goliath is getting ready, David takes one of the stones, puts it in his sling. Now, this is not a slingshot like we're familiar with. It's a piece of hide. I don't know how big, I didn't really research it. But he could put a stone in the center of it and swing it above his head and get it going real good and let it go, and it would find its mark. And the more you use it, the more practice you have, just like anything else, the better you get, the more accurate you get. And so David was able to get his aim and his trajectory right, because remember, David's only maybe 4 foot, being compared to his age, and Goliath is 9 foot. And so he had to aim up high to get the stone to hit in his forehead. And David let the sling go. Stone flew out, flew straight, and hit Goliath right in his forehead. And that basically knocked Goliath out. It sunk in, and there's enough to mortally wound Goliath where he could not respond and try to attack David. And then David went and drew Goliath's sword, which we didn't talk about the size of it, but because the Bible doesn't talk about it, but we compare the other weapons such as the javelin and the spear. Javelin was 2.5 inches around and probably 8 feet long or longer. So that's a pretty heavy piece of wood. And then the spear, the metal head on it weighed 16 pounds. And if you've ever picked up a bowling ball, a 16-pound bowling ball, you know how heavy that is. So, but here, David, with just a sling and a rock, killed Goliath. And he takes the sword of this giant. And based on the description of the other weapons, this sword was fairly large also. But yet David was able to pick it up and swing it down and cut Goliath's head off. And he did all this without one bit of metal armor on. And it was all because he trusted in God. He knew God would protect him, the same as God protects him when he was fighting bears and lions and any other wild animals. And that is what over in Ephesians Paul is talking about. when he says put on the full armor of God. It is a metaphor for us today. We are to put our whole trust in God. Trust Him with everything in our lives. And just let God take care of everything. And trust Him to protect us. And He will keep us safe and will deliver us from what we do and what we need protection. And so that's what, in a way, this is an example of how to use the armor of God. David trusted in God to protect him and to help him slay the giant. And that is what we are to do also. Trust in God with your whole heart, and that He will help you slay the giants in your life. And so we're going to wrap up with that. Next week I'll get more into the belt of truth and the breastplate of righteousness and the meanings of all those, what everything represents. But for today, that's what we need to learn is trust in God. As we're singing about, trust in God. Talk to God. Pray to God. And just, it's hard to do sometimes. I struggle with it, I know, of letting go and letting God have control of stuff. But that is something we need to do. And it's on a daily basis with everything. And so as we come to sing the invitation.
Number 183.
Number 183, only trust Him. Only trust God. If there is anything in your life, you want to give your life to God, you've never become a Christian or anything, you want to do that, come forward today and we'll pray and lead you. And then, or if you want to join this church in fellowship, come on up and join. Or if there's just anything you want to give up to God, you can either come on up to the altar. I know some of us, it's hard to kneel down. You can either come on up and pray at the altar, kneel if you want to, or sit someplace, or stay at your seat and sit. But if you got something you need to pray about, just pray to God and give it up. Or if you want to talk to me about it, come on up, we'll talk and we'll pray. And so as we sing, come forward.